Welcome back. You're still watching the daily debate. As we did see in the past report, the possible expulsion of the Russian banks from the SWIFT banking system, which covers all over the world. One of the economic sanctions that would be taken against the Russian banks and the political leadership of Russia following the invasion of Ukraine by the Russian troops in the past couple of days, and to be focusing on what happened in the Russian-Ukrainian conflict in the past couple of days. I'm honored to be having with me over the phone Ambassador Mohamed Orabi, the former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for being with us tonight on the daily debate. Mr. Ambassador, first of all, how did you see the developments that took place in the past couple of days, and more specifically the Russian invasion to Ukraine?
I think we are facing a critical, situation now all over the world, not just in the territory of Ukraine. We will see a new shape of international order. Things will, develop very quickly, and as I said, it is a critical juncture. And maybe it will have its impact all over the near future of the world, and we will see a new division in the world also. And I think we felt that the UN as an international system, it has a sort of weakness. And they didn't, try to take over the situation and to put a sort of solution to tackle this issue. And maybe the system of the veto, the Security Council also has to be, changed and to overviewed. And I know that it will not happen because, of course, the 5 members, the permanent members of the Security Council will prevent any kind of action, to change the system, which I think prove that it is a sort of obstacle in order to implement the order, the law and order in the world. So the situation in Ukraine, actually, it will have its impact on the political life and even the economic life also. Severe, I would say, measurements against Russia, and it will have its impact also on the West and the rest of the world. You can see the increase of the price of oil and many other things. So we are in a real dilemma, and I think the whole world should, interact to prevent the escalation of this situation and try to put the two sides on the negotiation table in order to find a sort of solution and a compromise to pave the way for a peaceful solution and to prevent this bloodshed and the effect on the innocent people of Ukraine and some other territories outside even Ukraine. So it is a very grave situation, and I think we should act together in order to prevent the escalation and try to de-escalate the situation quickly and try to reach peaceful means in order to pave the way for a lasting peace in that region.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, exactly as you said. What is the next step to be reaching a peaceful solution of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine? The negotiations, do you think that this is a viable option now on the table following what happened on Thursday and up till now in Ukraine?
I think we should first, reach a ceasefire, immediate ceasefire, and maybe the situation should be a little bit, I would say, quiet, and then this will give a sort of opportunity to the two sides in order to sit together and try to find a solution, maybe some mediation from a third country, like, let us say, Belarus or some other countries. But I think Belarus, maybe they are eligible, to play an active role to put the two sides in a real negotiation. So I think we should also bear in mind that we are facing a humanitarian issues because, a lot of displaced people will go to certain other countries, and this will create a new problems, a new humanitarian problem for over millions of people. So I think all the things should, push us in order to exert more efforts in order to reach an agreement and try to put a peaceful solution to that conflict.
Mr. Ambassador, to be specifically speaking about the Ukrainian side of the possible negotiations, do you think that there was a change of mind, a change of heart, that there was a refusal to be going to Belarus, and now there is possible news that the Ukrainian side and the negotiators from Ukraine are heading to the Belarusian borders for negotiations? Why do you think there was a refusal to be having Belarus as a mediator between Ukraine and Russia?
Well, I think the situation on the ground, will push the two sides to think seriously how they can go together and to discuss the situation. And I think the situation on the ground is not in favor of Ukraine. I think the Russian forces, they are well equipped, they are more than the Ukrainians. I must say that the Ukrainians, they had a fierce, opposition and try to fight back, and this is a good thing. But in the meantime, I don't think they can, fight for a long time, because the Russians, they are more reachable, and they can feed back the troops on the ground there. And they can even, maybe use more sophisticated weapons than the Ukrainians. So the situation on the ground will be, of course, moved to the negotiating table. So I think the Russians, yes, they will be, or I would say they will have a leverage on the Ukrainians, and they are maybe in a better position. But in the meantime, maybe some other countries could interfere and try to mediate and try to reach a compromise. But the fact saying that the Russians, they are more, let us say, powerful than the Ukrainians, and this will also be reflected on the negotiating table. But still, we have to examine, this way of trying to solve the solution. Diplomatic solutions is much better than, this bloodshed. And in the meantime, the whole world actually needs peace in that region, and I think we should encourage both sides by every means in order to go to the negotiating table.
The situation on the ground, as you mentioned, Mr. Ambassador, is not favoring Ukraine, it is favoring Russia, to be specific. What would be the demands of Russia if they were to be negotiating in the upcoming couple of days?
I guess the membership of Ukraine to the NATO alliance, I think this is maybe the main obstacle and the main demand of the Russians. We can experience another, let us say, way of solution. We have a lot of good examples, like, let us say, Finland. Finland is an European country, but in the meantime, they are not member of the NATO, and they are playing a sort of peaceful role in that region. So maybe they can change the status of Ukraine and try to follow the example of Finland as a prosperous, country. But in the meantime, they are not member of the NATO, and they can even join the EU as an economic and political bloc. But maybe we can try to relinquish the idea of joining the NATO now.
Can this happen by the Ukrainian side, to be having plans to be joining the NATO and then dismissing the idea following this invasion or those steps by Russia?
I think the invasion of Russia, of course, they are creating a lot of obstacles in that regard, and it will maybe make the Ukrainians more adamant, to strictly adhere to the principle of joining the NATO. But I think in order to avoid large scale of conflict in Europe, I think it should be, a solution. And I guess the West should encourage Ukraine to relinquish, the idea of having a membership of the NATO.
On the other hand, earlier in the day, the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, he said that he was willing to be going to negotiations, but in certain countries like Turkey, for example, Azerbaijan, Hungary. Why do you think he chose those three countries?
Well, Turkey, I think they are not eligible, because Turkey is a member of the NATO. And the Russians, of course, they will not be happy to go there. Maybe Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is one of the Commonwealth countries. Sorry, the former Soviet countries. I'm sorry. So that's why maybe they are speaking the same language, and I think maybe they will be more eligible, to be the venue of such negotiation, and maybe some other countries. But I think we should avoid any country member of the NATO to be the venue of this negotiation.
Did this lead to the insistence of Russia having the negotiations in Belarus as one of the allies?
Yes, Belarus is a very strong ally, of course, to the Russian regime, and they are neighboring country. Also, they have a common border with Ukraine. So maybe we can designate a certain place near the border of Belarus, but in Ukraine. So maybe this would be a good compromise.
The president of Ukraine, he stated in the past couple of days that the West and the US, they didn't do enough to be defending Ukraine and the people of the country. How do you see the sanctions that took place already in the past couple of days following the invasion by the West, by the European Union, by the United States, and the upcoming possible sanctions against Russia?
I consider the Western sanction is so powerful and effective, but it might take some time in order to be felt. So that's why maybe the president of Ukraine doesn't recognize the effectiveness of this sanction. But I think it is a very strong and a very effective sanction, and that's why this might be a sort of invitation to the Russians to change their mind and try to reach a negotiation in a good faith. But in the meantime, the situation on the ground, as I said, it is in favor of Russia. But of course, the sanction is effective, and I think this is maybe the only method and the only weapon in the hands of the Western countries. Because as President Biden said, the NATO troops will not fight over the territory of Ukraine, and they will just defend the borders of the NATO. And I think this is a very clear message to everybody that the West is trying to avoid a large-scale war in the next few days.
One of the statements that was released today by the Prime Minister of Britain, Boris Johnson, and the Ukrainian President, Vladimir Zelensky, that they needed more help and they needed to be having more assistance in defending the country, in defending the people of Ukraine. Do you consider this a call for war between Ukraine and Russia, and having a lot of allies from the West and from the European Union as well against Russia?
No, I think the West will provide Ukraine with all the assistance economically and, of course, procurement. And I think they will keep, this pledge to the Ukrainians, and they will supply them with everything. But in the meantime, the Ukrainians, in terms of numbers and anti-tanks weapons, they are not good enough, to fight this large-scale invasion from the Russian, tanks and heavy equipment. So the West can, yes, provide the Ukraine, but I can say that there is a limitation to this kind of help because, of course, some airports, they are destroyed now, and the facilities, they are not well equipped to receive all this assistance from the West. But in the meantime, The situation on the ground, as I said, it is not in favor of the Ukrainians, despite the fact they will have a lot of supplies and also provide them with some new, let us say, rockets, anti-tanks rockets. But still, the fight will not be, it might be a long fight, but in the meantime, it will not be in favor of the Ukrainians. I think the Russians could finish the operation by having more aggressive attacks, but the Ukrainians will be the loser, and they will destroy their country, and they will lose a lot of potential economic growth because Ukraine is an important country, very wide, large country, and it has a big population. But I think this war actually will diminish their capabilities to be part of the international economy and part of the Western civilization.
Yes, Ambassador Mohamed Orabi, the former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you very much for being with us today on the Daily Debate. We will be having a quick break, so stay tuned.